Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University, and welcome to our weekly study. And today, look, have you ever done dumbbell curls? And the reason I'm going over this is because I've spoken to a number of folks, and I've been asked by personal trainers through the years, as they're training people, when they're training themselves, the question of, well, what's the best way to do dumbbell curls? And so then hearing it more and more. By the way, every exercise that we ever do, I tend to get questions as to what is the best way to do this particular exercise. So when you're in the gym and you're actually training people, um, it's a great question, and it's an important question. One of the reasons why dumbbell curls always comes up is because it's just one of those favorite exercises that folks like to do, and there's a couple of different ways you can do them. And so normally my answer to the question is well, what do you mean the best way to do it? Because for the most part, as a trainer, the best way to do an exercise is what is one in the way in which that you do it without hurting your client, but you maximize tension on the particular muscle that you're training, right? So when somebody says, what's the best way to do a dumbbell curl? My answer is well, any way is the best, so long as you're not hurting the particular joint or joints that they work over. And in the case of dumbbell curls, it's obviously the elbow joint. I guess you can say the wrist as well, but generally it's the elbow. If people are feeling it in their wrist, there's maybe some other issues, such as the amount of weight or resistance you're using. Okay, so if there's no issue or pain in the elbow while you're doing the exercise, then that's fine. Then, well, what's another variable? Well, are you doing the exercise? Are you doing dumbbell curls in such a way that you are maximizing the tension and stress safely on the particular muscle? And again, the reason why dumbbell curls are interesting is because it's not one muscle. Okay, keep in mind now, and that's why I want to go over this with you, because I'm asked this question. I'm trying to build the peak, or I'm trying to do this or that to the muscle, and I have to step back and say, okay, hang on a second. There's three main flexor muscles at the elbow. Okay, when we say the biceps, I want to build my biceps. Well, yeah, I get that. You're talking about what's known as the biceps brachii, right? That is the large peaked mound, meaty part of that anterior part of the humerus, right? The upper arm bone, and that's your biceps brachii. But there's two other muscles that go along with the flexing of the elbow, and they're actually important muscles to keep in mind. So again, you have to be thinking, are you talking about best with respect to just building muscle, but I'm going to hurt my elbow in the process, which I've done, right? As a bodybuilder, we see this all the time. You just work through well, you got tendonitis, dude. You need to rethink your training. Yeah, you might be getting hypertrophy, but you're paying a very heavy price for it. So we want to do it in such a way that if it's the average client, it doesn't matter who it is, that it's done safely with no injuries, right? And not just acute injuries, ow, you tear your bicep tendon. No, also chronic injuries or chronic pain and issues that go along with consistent type of strength training moves that can develop inflammatory responses. So we want to make sure that's not the case, while putting enough tension and stress on the muscle. And this goes down to biomechanics. So I just wanted to go over real quick with you, kind of how we do this, and the kind of the diagrams I want to show you. Best way to do dumbbell curls, right? Diagram I want to show you is just the three flexor muscles at the elbow. Okay, and the first one here on the left is called the biceps brachii. So let me go ahead and kind of show you here. This guy right here, long head and short head, is what's known as the biceps, right? Biceps. We all know this. When you're training people, it's the biceps, BR brachii, BRA. And I'm going to run into the picture, but it's got two eyes. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to dot it up top, brachii. So it's two eyes, BRACHII, or brachii, I guess you can say, but brachii. So biceps brachii, that's the large, that's what we call the biceps. But there are actually two other flexors that are important to understand, because here is the deal. The best way to impact the biceps brachii is by your standard dumbbell curl with the wrist. Look at my wrist in what's known as a supinated position, right? So supinated simply means that the palm is facing up. See, the reason you have three flexor muscles at the elbow is because of the high degree of mobility that you have at the wrist. See, the wrist can turn. It can supinate. It can pronate. Supinate, pronate. Remember soup? Like you're giving somebody a bowl of soup. So supination, pronation, right? With the palm facing up or to the front. If I have my arms at the side, like I'm doing a dumbbell curl, that's a supinated position. If I do what are known as reverse curls, you ever see reverse curls, right? Where somebody is holding them like that. And what do they tell you? It builds the forearm, fills up. Well, yeah, I guess technically you could say the forearm, but it's not the forearm. I mean, the muscle that is most active during a reverse curl or when the wrist is pronated, right? Palm down is the brachioradialis muscle. And so, yes, there's a fair amount of the meat of that muscle. And that guy is right. It's actually right here, this guy right there. Okay, can you see that? And so that muscle, yeah, there's a meaty component to it, right? Right at your forearm. You can generally see it when somebody's doing a hammer curl or a reverse curl. And so because your wrist can pronate and supinate, it has to be able to flex in those different positions. Right? And that's basically mechanically why you have these different muscles that allow for higher or lower levels of activation depending on the relative position of the wrist, pronated or supinated. Really simple. Well, it just turns out that the biceps brachii is most active. By the way, all three muscles are active no matter what the position. It's just a question of degree of activity, the electrical activity that we pick up if you look at any of the studies that's done on the muscles of the flexion muscles of the elbow. Just depends on, are you fully supinated? Well, we know that the biceps brachii, that big guy right on the front, that's most active when it's in a supinated position. Well, it doesn't, by the way, the brachialis muscle is very active in a supinated position as well. The brachioradialis is somewhat active, but it's not being put through its paces like the biceps brachii is. However, as I start to pronate, meaning I start to move my palm towards face down position, full pronation, when I go from supination into what's called a neutrally pronated position, what exercise do we call this, by the way? That's right, hammer curls, like you're hitting with a hammer. Hammer curls. Well, the biceps brachii and the brachioradialis, this guy right here, and this other guy called the brachioradialis here and the brachialis. I got that mixed up for you. You can read it. So the earlier when I said the brachioradialis, I meant to point to this guy. I actually pointed to the brachialis. You get the idea. Both of those muscles are active. All three are active, but in a neutrally pronated position, guess what muscle is really active? The brachialis muscle, this guy. And this guy, by the way, lies up underneath the biceps brachii. You can't see it from the front because imagine that the biceps brachii pretty much lies right on top of it. So you don't see it from the front, but you do see it from the side. And when somebody is really lean, you can see the brachialis, just that side of the brachialis muscle, on the lateral aspect of the upper arm. So that guy is a very powerful muscle. Now, when I go into a fully pronated position, that's when this guy comes into play. This is the brachioradialis. Okay. So in a fully pronated position, brachioradialis becomes very strongly activated. The biceps brachii is still active, but not as active. The brachioradialis is still fairly active even during a reverse dumbbell curl or reverse curl, however you want to do it. So kind of the idea is that depending on the position that you're in, any one of those three are going to be more or less active. But what's the point of this? And my answer to the trainers that come up to me and say, I've got my client doing this and it hurts when they do this, my answer to the question is the best curl is the one that doesn't hurt, or while you're doing it, you do notice that there's some discomfort or pain. So normally in the real world, when I'm training somebody, it's really pretty simple. As soon as I start doing standard dumbbell curls with my palms facing up, if there's no issue, no pain, then I just keep doing them. As soon as I notice, and this is the funny thing is that I notice it more often than not, is that folks do have a little bit of discomfort. Maybe they have tennis elbow or whatever the case is. And the first thing I do is I have them go from fully supinated into a neutrally pronated position. In other words, hammer curls. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to show this to you is to just give you sort of an overview so you can explain it to your clients. When they're doing curls, if they have any discomfort or pain, I would immediately go into a neutrally pronated position, right? And do your dumbbell curls like that. And I know what you're saying. Well, what about developing the peak? Let me ask you a question. How many of your clients actually care about having a peak in their bicep? Come on, that's not how this works. Remember, in a neutrally pronated position, the biceps brachii is very active. You're not losing, for the most part, you're not losing anything. And by the way, it could be that when they're first starting to do the curl, maybe they just need to warm up a little bit. They'll warm up with your hammer curls. Now, the next question is how do I do my hammers? Do I do them straight in a sagittal plane, or can I do them up and down like this, right? Coming up with the dumbbells like this, and you see some folks doing it. It doesn't matter, to be honest with you. That goes back to basic exercise performance. The point here, what I'm trying to go over with you here, is the substitution of one particular position of the wrist for another based on whether or not there's pain, discomfort, or whether they're feeling it in the bicep or not. Just keep in mind, any type of movement that you're doing with folks, you got to maintain resistance, tension on the self. Either way, don't lock the elbow out at the bottom, whether it's fully supinated, neutrally pronated, or fully pronated. Don't extend all the way out with the elbow. Why? Because biomechanically, that's ineffective, number one, and it puts an undue amount of stress on the insertion tendon of all three of those particular flexors. So just keep that in mind as well. Remember, biceps brachii. Remember, I didn't want to confuse you earlier on when I misnamed these guys, but you get the idea now. Brachialis is the muscle that lies up underneath the biceps brachii itself. It has been called, by the way, it's a very strong muscle. It's in a very good biomechanical position. Why? Because it inserts into the ulnar, okay, of the forearm. Remember, the forearm has two bones, the ulnar and the radius. See these guys right over here? Biceps brachii inserts into the radius, okay, of the forearm. And the radius is the bone that basically swivels back and over the ulnar as you go through pronation and supination. Well, the brachialis muscle actually inserts into the ulnar, much better from a biomechanical power generation perspective, ironically enough. And that's one of the reasons why I do hammer curls. The other is because it hurts the heck out of my elbows when I do regular dumbbell curls. So I always do hammers. Ultimately, if I get warmed up, yeah, I can do this. But again, trainers that do ask the question, this is a very helpful response, which is don't do anything that hurts or is uncomfortable, obviously, in the joints. And then just think about the fact that you've got three muscles in there. Three of them need to be trained. There's nothing wrong with doing reverse curls with your clients. Just make sure that it's done properly, smooth, slow, controlled, and that you're not putting any unnecessary stress on the elbow joint itself. Please keep in mind that the goal here ultimately is to help you when you're training your clients to get results for them. Okay, even though it's a dumbbell curl, it's an important exercise. Folks like to do dumbbell curls. It's a great way, obviously, to strengthen the muscles of the upper arm. Right, you're going to generally do biceps with with your back if you're doing a 3-day split, and you're going to do it obviously with your upper body if you're doing a 2-day split. So again, keep that in mind. And if you have any questions on the materials that you're going over in the BDU modules, please let us know. Remember, you have coaches, your success coach is there to help you out. So please call them if you have any questions on the materials. When you're actually training people, for those of you that are actually training people, go right into this forum, go right into the Facebook group and post any questions you may have, not just about BDU materials, but things that you're actually doing with your clients. Let us know so we can help and assist you. By the way, Corey and I do a Q&A every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Had to think about that for a second. 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Give us your questions. Come on board live with us as well. You can do that. And just let us know how we can help you. And we will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks.